We've all been there. You're ready to rip that great guitar solo you've been thinking about the whole day, and then you get this. Not enough gain, not enough sustain, all of a sudden you start questioning your guitar. I was right there just earlier this week, my friend. In case you are having the same issue I was having, I want to help you out of that dark corner of not having a great lead sound. That's right, my friend. Today we're making a great lead sound in Amplitube 5. I'm Jorge Lanzas, and now we break it down, baby. Alright, my friend, thank you so much for being here again. And like I was saying, maybe a little bit dramatically, it's really hard when you cannot find a great lead tone. And I know there's a bunch of purists that are gonna say, oh man, there's nothing hard about making a great lead tone. You just plug your Les Paul into a great Marshall and you're ready to go. Put a little bit of delay if you want to. But ever since we took the 100 watts of power hitting your body out of the equation, I don't feel like that has been the case. And I mentioned that thing about the 100 watts because, for example, in the studio, the biggest difference between the real sound that you get in the room when you're playing with the cabinet right there, like putting the microphone in, and the control room, is that all of a sudden you're not getting that experience of the air just being like super saturated, like blowing all against your body. What they would call
sound pressure level.
As soon as you go to a different environment and you just play that same sound quietly, all of a sudden things sound very different. And that's when we start getting really picky. When we started listening to ourselves recorded. So after hitting that brick wall for like, I don't know, half hour, I came up with a pretty good sound and I want to share it with you. But more importantly, I want to share with you how to make it. And the thought process that goes through my head when I'm trying to choose these kind of components. So without further ado, my friend, let's go to my computer. So here we are, my friend, Amplitube 5, and this is the very simple default preset that everybody has in their own Amplitube, with one difference. I'm going to turn the output minus 6 dBs. Right here, mainly because I don't want the recording for the video that's going to you have like any types of clipping, you know what I mean? That would be like, ugh, brother, ugh. But it's also important for you at home because Amplitube is notorious for sounding terrible when this little red light of doom comes on. It does sound very bad. Try it for yourself at home. Just like push it and just hear how it sounds. So my recommendation, if you need a little bit more volume and let's say you're in your DAW, turn the fader up. And if you're just using headphones, just turn your headphones up, man, no problem. That's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Turning your output up right here is not gonna do anything good for you. But turning the master up or the volume up in an amplifier will do something that you might like. And in that case, it's even more important to actually lower that output as much as you need to make sure that you don't have that red light. Alright, enough geekiness, let's stop the talking, get to the rocking, and grab a guitar. Today we're gonna be using my PRS SE Custom 2408 because I trust this guitar, so let's do it. Right, so if you're an Amplitube 5 and you are using a humbucker equipped guitar like I am, this is what it should sound like. I keep coming back to how good this little default patch sounds, right? Like just simple, like a Marshall, and that's it. It just sounds really good. But let's stop getting sidetracked and let's do what we need to do. And I want to say that the sound that we're going to recreate in today is the sound that I used for my Star Spangled Banner one-take solo that I did as a tribute for the 4th of July. And I know that a bunch of you have been participating in my shorts where I'm like asking you to guess what kind of amp this is. And something very interesting comes in my mind because I always think that the amp that I use for this sound sounds like a bunch of different amps in one amp. And that's why it's been one of my secret favorites that I've been using for so long. I really, really love this amp. And talking about love, remember to like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything and it helps me a lot. Thank you so much, my friend. Alright, so now that we know that that's what we got, that's what that would have sounded if I would have used this Marshall. And actually, it does sound really good, but I need more. So just to give a little bit more time for anybody in the comments who is like actually trying to still play to which amp I'm going to be using today, I'm going to go change a couple other settings before I get to the amp so you can still play along a little bit longer. Okay, so here we go. We're going to change the amp, but we're not going to start there. We're going to start here with the cabinet settings. First thing I'm going to do, mute the room, mute the secondary microphone, but I'm still going to change the room type. I'm going to change it to the large studio just because I feel like there's something that happens in the mid-range that makes it sound different. So here we are. Now that we did all that, the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change my main microphone for, you guessed it, a condenser 87. It's my favorite mic to put in front of a cab. All right, let's keep moving. I don't change the position or anything like that because the position that they usually have here is just exactly what I would like. So that's fine for me, but I invite you to go and check it out for yourself. All right, stop stalling. And now let's go change the amp. Bum, 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 bum. So let's go see, my friends, what amp I was using for this sound that you've been listening to in that little video. Bing, 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 bing. The Angle Powerball. Definitely one of my favorite high gain amps. It just sounds incredible. Great for riffs, great for leads, and a chameleon of sorts because it does sound like a bunch of other amps. So if you guessed Marshall, Randall, even Peavey, you were pretty close, my friend, because like I say, this guy sounds like almost any other amp. You just gotta pick it right. And again, with great tuneability comes a lot of trouble because there's too many things that it's like almost like hard to keep up with what you actually moved or not. But whatever, let's just get the magic settings, right? So everything should be like back to default, kinda, I wanna say. But if not, just follow along and you'll be fine. So let's just hear this, how it sounds in the default state. There's something about the distortion in this amp. And maybe you were thinking, I mean, it sounds great, but it sounds like it could be a little bit more open, right? That's exactly why we're going to start tweaking it. Let's go. So the first thing that I'm going to move is the presence because we already established that it's a little bit woofy, right? In my presence, I have it like around 3.5. Be careful with this control because it can get really, really gnarly. Let's just hear what we have so far. There you go. Sounds a little bit better already. Now the second thing, again, since we were saying it sounds a little bit woolly, I feel like it's got a little bit too much bass. So let's roll it down to 5. And before I get too ahead of myself, right here in the channel selection, we are in channel 2. And you can see that because of the light right here on the volume. Look. Tick, book, tick, book, tick, book, tick, book. So now we know that we are only using this set of controls right here. So of course, turning the bass down. The gain, I tend to keep it like at 5 because this kind of amp just sounds good the way it is right there. I didn't feel like I needed way much more gain coming from the amp. But you already know that I'm going to color the sound in front of the amp. Get ready because there's a lot to pack up. Let's go. Right, so let's just keep moving. Now the second thing that I want to point out is that we have these 2 different mid-range little knobs right here, right? One called mid-open and mid-focused. And they both sound very, very different. I think that's useful for different kind of applications. So you're going to be the judge of that and decide when you want to use one or the other. But in this case, I decided to use the mid-open, which is with this button out. And I pushed it really hard because this is a lead tone. I pushed it all the way to 8.5. And just like a little tip, if you want to use the other kind of mid-range, I like to have it like around 3.5. Or something like that, so you can go try it there if you want to. Okay, next thing that I like to do is just keep the treble at 5. Again, basically the main concern that we had about the amp, it's been addressed by just moving a few knobs, right? Now my neck. Great mid-range, right? Like that's impressive about this amp. Now let's make sure that we have the lead where we want it for 4, 4, 6. That makes sense. Our master, we're gonna keep it like around 4.5, whatever, 4.7, 4.5, 4.6, whatever you want to do. It's all the same to me. If it's not the same to you, make sure you choose the one that you want the most. Other secret thing, this D punch knob. Let's just hear it without it. Of course, you have to be very careful. Let's punch it up all the way and see what happens. It's like so extreme. So let's just be judicious and turn it like to maybe 4. Something very particular about this amp, and the main reason why I really like it a lot to do like lead sounds, but then I like it for rhythm sounds a lot, like especially for like extreme heavy rock.
This is a monster amp.
But this is what I mean. If you are like in your bridge position, right, and you start chugging, it has like a lot of bottom end. You can feel like the force of the amp almost, right? But then when you go to your neck, it doesn't get woolly. I mean, maybe if you're chugging like that, but let's hear like in a lead context. Bridge first. You know, it doesn't get like too sweet. It still has like that aggression, that bite that you really need for a solo. So if you were not hip to this amp, I hope that now you are. Okay, I think we're done with the amp. Let's change the cabinet. Usually when you hear a sound and something like really picks your attention, like for example in this case, that I felt like something was like a little bit woolly, or maybe like it was a little bit like woofy. That sometimes has to do with the cabinet. And even though we already addressed the amp, we still have to address the cabinet. But quick tip moment, don't ever change the cabinet before you tweak the amp, because everything you might want it is just like a little tweak of one of those knobs, and that was it. So always choose the path of less resistance first. Okay, so here we are in our cabinet section, and let's start by unlocking this guy so that we can move it without affecting the amp or anything. And let's close this mixer because we don't need it. And let's just sort of like hear the difference between a few different kinds of cabinets. Okay, I think that's enough of the cabinet tour, but let me know in the comment section down below which one was your favorite. And while you're there, remember to like, subscribe, and do all those cool little things that we like to do on YouTube. And enjoy this little bossa nova, my friend. I hope your day keeps getting better and better and better. So now let's just go to the cabinet that I thought I liked the most, and is this vintage M. It just has so much character. Let's hear it compared to the original. I don't know, let me know again in the comments which one you prefer, but I think that that one with this amp works perfectly. Let's hit a little bit of a riff. I mean, it still sounds good, but of course, remember, we're doing a lead tone. Let's hear our neck pickup and see how it sounds. I love how reactive it is to the change of pickups, but whatever, now that we have two of the most important components in this whole chain, it's feeling a little bit dry, right? Let's get a couple of effects in it. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of reverb, and I'm going to start right here looking for some sort of plate. And here we have our plate reverb. We're going to put it right here in our effects loop. And the first thing that I like to do is I like to turn the mix down maybe to like 10, 9. Granted, this is a lead sound, so I'm using a lot more reverb than I would normally use. But for this kind of sound, I feel like around 10 is going to be fine. And then the next thing that we're going to tweak a little bit is this high pass filter. We're going to go at least to 85, something like that, because that's where like E starts in a guitar, and this guitar is tuned to E, so we're definitely not going to go any lower. But to be honest, in a mix, I will probably turn that up way, way higher than I'm doing right now. Let's hear the difference. So see, I feel like we can be really aggressive with that low cut and with not really losing too much, right? But whatever, let's just be judicious and do it, I don't know, 120 sounds good. And I'm gonna be the first one to tell you that that on its own doesn't really sound that great. Like, I feel it's a little bit cavernous and like it doesn't sound really that good, but I'm gonna use that after a delay. Let's use a delay. I like to use this tape echo, and I'm gonna put it before the reverb. And I'm gonna go for an eighth note first and foremost. Oh, let's turn the sync on, go to an eighth note. Let's turn the level down to maybe, I don't know, I feel like around 230, you're already pushing it to the point that it's a little bit too much. Let's hear it really quick. But all of a sudden that reverb made a lot more sense, right? That to me sounds really good. Let's check the feedback. That sounds pretty good the way it is. Brightness, I don't know. Let's go to the center. That sounds very good to me. So let's just move on to the next step of the way, which is going to be a little unorthodox for some, but we're going to put a little bit of a noise gate before this effects right after the cabinet. We're going to be a little bit aggressive, release all the way fast, depth all the way up. We're going to, I don't know, come like around 72. Maybe go even more aggressive with the threshold all the way till, I don't know, yeah, around here where I don't hear the noise anymore. But let's hear how it sounds. And the whole purpose of that gate right there is to make sure that when I turn my guitar down or when I'm not playing, I'm not hearing anything going through the delay and the reverb creating this horrible tail of noise, right? I'm still needing to be a little bit more aggressive. Let's go to 45. And the idea is that if I turn my guitar on, this noise gate should be activated. Let's hear it. It's starting to sound really, really good, my friend. And now you don't have that noise. So it's feeling really good. We have manicured the sound. We have made the sound better. And we've done some utility stuff that it's going to be good for us to have. Next step, dynamic control. And for this step, we're going to go at the very, very beginning of our signal chain right here. And we're going to start with a noise gate, of course. But in this case, it's going to be a very, very mild gating. I'm going to go maybe tops 80 something. Maybe like that. Let's hear it. Yeah, like that it will be fine. 80 something would be fine. Don't worry about that. You can do the release all the way fast. I always like to do that, but don't worry about this too much. What really, really matters in this signal change is compression. I'm going to start before the gate by putting one of these on low, because honestly, my friend, that's in my opinion, the best compressor that we have in Amplitube to make sure that if you have different guitars, they're still staying consistent within your signal chain without affecting too much of what's coming after, giving you the freedom to actually use the guitars that you want to use with every rig that you use. So that's basically the only point of that compressor. Let's hear it. So as you can tell, the difference is not really that big in how much I'm pushing the amp, but I'm hearing a nice difference in tone, exactly what I would like to. Okay, next step is actual control. We're gonna go right here to our post effects section. And I like to go to the post effects for compressors because I feel like they have better compressors for actually compressing the sound. Not just a utility compressor like I'm using right here with the Fender one. Okay, so here we go. Let's go and find these white 2A. Very simple, only 2 knobs, and it's going to do all the damage that we need. We're going to keep it in compress. We're going to turn the output down to around maybe like 23-ish. And why I'm so particular about keeping the outputs low? Because I don't want to over push the amp and trick myself by just having more distortion. I want the compressor to compress. Okay, and now the peak reduction, we're just going to keep it exactly where it is. Let's hear it. Like thickens the tone in a very, very nice way. And all of a sudden, that elusive sustain starts showing up. Yeah, that's the power of a little bit of compression. But what happens if we add a little bit more? So to add my next layer of compression, what we're going to do is we're going to add this Model 670, which is like a very, very nice, fancy, and posh compressor. And we're going to change a few settings, starting with the input that we're going to do all the way to the top, because I really want to get the sound of this compressor, okay? Then the time constant, I'm going to choose 4, which for some reason, it just reacts really nicely to the interaction of the pick and the distortion. I feel like it just does something really nice to the attack, right? Then we're going to turn your threshold to 1.6, just a little bit lower than what it is. And then your output, we're going to turn it all the way down to minus 8. Again, since I'm pushing the input so hard, I need to take the output down so that I'm not pushing the amp too hard after it. I always have to be mindful of what's coming after in my chain. Things are not isolated. They're a part of a system, if you will. Right? So what do we sound like now? Let's see what happens if I turn this whole dynamic session off. It just like feels like more alive. And yes, we're gaining a little bit of volume, so of course we're pushing the amp a little bit more, but does it sound better or not? Let me know in the comment section. I like it better. Something that I tend to notice every time I'm playing is that I tend to hit the guitar sometimes a little bit harder than I should. And maybe it's not the case in this guitar that it affects the sound too much, but sometimes, for example, when I'm using my Gibson Les Paul.
And go get it.
Here's what happens, right? I feel like there's a little bit of like a punch that happens. And if that happens to you, my friend, let me give you a little bit of a tip right now. Boom, you're gonna go right here to your EQ81. You're gonna drop it right after the last compressor on the chain. And you're gonna make a low cut right here. And it's gonna be a little bit aggressive all the way to 270, which is crazy. But you have to remember, this is going before the amp, not after. So you're not taking all that low end away. You're just sort of like cleaning things up a little bit before they get to a very bassy amp, right? All of a sudden, I feel like the pick sounds instead of sounding poof, 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 poof. Let's hear the difference. And again, like I'm saying, depending on the kind of guitar that you're using, you're going to find this helpful or not really. In this case, I really like what it's doing with my Gibson Les Paul. Let's go back to my PRS. Wow, it's just crazy. I really hear the pick a lot more. I really like that. Okay, next step, we're going to add one little overdrive pedal just to tighten that sound a little bit more and get a little bit more articulation, let's say. And for that, my friend, we're going to go right here to our pedal section and we're going to find an overdrive that I've been liking a lot. And this is the Pinnacle Deluxe. And if you've been watching my videos, you know how much I've been enjoying this pedal, right? But the first thing that I'm going to do is like, I'm going to turn everything to 5 or 12 o'clock if you want to call it that. I'm going to turn the boost off. This goes to 5 and my gain is going to be at 6. Again, like I said earlier, just tightening my sound. I'm not trying to get a lot of distortion out of it, right? Let's see what it did. To me, sounds really, really nice and shreddy. I mean, I'm not the greatest shredder, but that sounds pretty shreddy to me. But I feel like we still need a little bit more control in the dynamics. And we're gonna go again with my favorite compressor of all time, the 670. And in this case, the settings are gonna be a little bit different to what I tend to use in the input section. We're just gonna turn this up a tiny bit to like 8.5-ish. And then the time constant, we're gonna go to automatic and full, like 6 all the way down. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but in this compressor, when you turn it all the way to the right, the time constants basically becomes program dependent or automatic. And the attack and release are gonna be controlled with the tubes. But without getting too geeky, whatever, let's just choose it right there. And then the threshold, we're gonna turn it down to like around 3.4, 3.5, and then our output, we're gonna leave it right there at 2. Let's hear it. You're gonna be like, wow, the tone doesn't really change too much. What's happening? That's exactly what I'm looking for. I don't want to change the tone so much, but I want to compress it so that I have a little bit more sustain, right? It just sort of feels like the guitar is not turning off on you. You know what I mean? And so for the last couple moves that I'm going to do in this sound, let's say the master EQ that I'm going to do, we're going to go put the 1081 again, because it's one of my favorite sounding EQs right here. We're going to put a cut again, but remember, this is after everything we've done. We're going to do a cut 82 again, because that's where the low E lives in the frequency chart. And I'm going to push 10K 5 dBs. And yeah, that's a lot, but that's exactly what I know I'm going to need whenever I'm competing with all the other instruments in a mix. And then I'm going to turn the output down one notch because, of course, again, I'm pushing level in. I'm going to turn the output down. Let's hear how that sounds. And on that note, my friend, let's go get a few conclusions. Alright, my friends, so there you go. A not so quick and not so easy, but very nice and very versatile guitar tone. Again, like I was saying and raving about this amp, is that it just gets the color that you want. And if you change guitars, it reacts so well, as you could see in like that tiny little example. A Les Paul into this, it sounds incredible. My Gibson Les Paul Studio into that sounds just really, really nice and creamy and delicious, but the high end and the amount of like definition that you have, especially with this 10K boost right here, it's just such a nice little detail. And I like to choose the different components always with a goal in mind. So in this case, for example, I'm looking for a lead sound. I know that I want it to stand out. I want it to have all that sheen, all that shine, all that spotlight into it. That's why you need a lot of high end. But you need that bottom end so you can still have that creaminess that you want. And of course, I'm not a great guitar player. I'm basically a beginner. So I would love to hear what you sound like with this kind of tone. But I think versatility is the name of the game. With the kind of sounds that I tend to use, I feel like if you make them for yourself in your own system, you're going to realize that the thing that I really focus on the most is to make sure that when I change something like a guitar, or if I insert a pedal in the change, anything that I do, I am gonna hear the change. But I'm not gonna be overwhelmed because the change is like so extreme that I'm just like, okay, this is night and day. There's no way that I can compare what I like the most. That's why I'm always paying attention to that output in every single component. I don't wanna overload whatever's happening after, unless it's intentional. But that's enough about me, my friend. I really wanna know what you have to say in the comment section. And remember, while you're there, always like, subscribe, and remember, if you wanna financially support me, you can always hit that super thanks button right there. And I thank you so much. And again, my friend, if you have some time to spare and watch another video, I'm gonna leave this one right here for you. And thank you so much for being here once again. I'll see you soon.